Welcome everyone to June's Daniel's Downloads. This is actually a redo from the June 23rd talk that many of you heard already. Had a little technical difficulties on the recording end. So we're doing a new run of it, but I wanted to get all this information out to you again and take the time to go through the slides so you have this as a reference, or for those of you that couldn't make it, you have a fresh start right here. So this month, we're going to talk about building your best GI protocol. And I'm going to kind of show you the new protocol that we put together, part of our new protocol manual that I've worked on with Dr. Arlen Hill. And then we're going to get into a brand new product that I'm very excited about that will be released in about a week. So please do me a favor, as you're listening in, it's not going to be on our website yet. It's not ready for order. And I've been told to make sure I tell you that, but it will be out here probably Wednesday of next week, which will be middle of June, or middle of the week, Wednesday, towards the end of June there. So look for it then. But if you're interested in it and you want to pre-order, you can text me, call me, email me, and I'm happy to help you. Let's run through the slides. I know your time is very valuable. I always appreciate you taking the time to listen into these live or later. And as always, you have my information. I want to be your resource to answer any questions that you have, any protocols or product comparisons and things of that nature. So here is the GI health and functional protocol. I know, very hard to see. I've blown it up on the next few slides, but I wanted to kind of give you a guidance of what the format looks like, some conditions that are included in that. And then we have the primary supplemental support with the recommended dosing and the description of what the product does or supplies. And then the additional support. We wanted to really pare down these protocols because sometimes, I know I can do it too, the list can be very, very long. And we wanted to give you the primary supplemental support, the things that we know gave you the most bang for the buck right off the bat, and without getting into the weeds. I was brought on this team to do these protocols because I've been around with biotics for so long that I knew the products, and Dr. Arlen Hill and his brilliant mind was brought on to kind of put things into format, but also he's brilliant at doing all the literature search and things that really fit in to make the most sense of nutrient status and where things were needed in all of our protocols. We have 30 protocols right now already out. I will email this one with the audio as a follow-up. So primary gut health support, you have our GI Resolve and our Immuno-GG SBI. You've heard me talk about the SBI quite a bit lately, and it will be a little bit of a refresher for some of you, but others it's brand new. There's a lot of new names on here I saw on the list, and so I'm happy to have you. And we're going to cover, though, the GI Resolve. We've had GI Resolve for quite a while, and it became a huge seller for us in the market. And I'll kind of explain and show you why, because let's be real, a lot of companies have a product in this category, but I'm going to show you what makes ours very unique, why we get such great clinical results with it. So the GI Resolve we'll cover, then we're going to cover a little bit again on the Immuno-GG SBI. And for those of you that have already heard this story, I've also included a few new slides to cover it. But this combination, if you remember my talks in the past, if you were on before, this combination was the combination that helped my new dog who's down the hallway, Duke, survive parvo. So you heard the story, some of you, he got parvo on a Sunday a couple months ago, bleeding diarrhea, vomiting, emergency vet, listless dog. It's not a good case. It's a 50-50 with some of these parvo puppies. And on Monday, the vet calls me and says, gosh, you know, there's not much we can do for him. All we try to do is feed him. They gave him an IV. He got some hydration and said, for $1,000 a day, I can save you that and take him home. And I thought, well, I think I have some really good tools here. So we brought him home and we put him on these two products on that Monday. Now, this was a very sick dog, and I won't go into all the details, but by Wednesday, now Sunday, bleeding, diarrhea, and vomiting. I mean, it was horrific. 2 a.m, I'm up with him, endless, until I could get him to the emergency vet. You know, they quarantine a dog like that. They carried him in, quarantined him. It's not free. And so God bless him and what he went through. But by Wednesday, I had a solid stool. The reason I tell you this story is sometimes in animals, because their diets are very, strict. If you saw what Duke eats, he eats pretty good, but it's very strict. He's not eating Twinkies or McDonald's or anything like that. And so the results, you can really see the results quickly. And this was an amazing result. And actually on Wednesday, he was taken to the vet, and the vet goes, "This is not a parvo dog." We had done a lot with his immunity in the GI. And I'm really excited about these 2 products because the subjective clinical responses that we're seeing are amazing, just amazing. Here's the gut health secondary supplemental program. Many of you know me as the butyrate guy. I can talk about butyrate all day long. I think has been for a long time one of the missing nutrients in many people's GI protocols. Butyric CalMag, it's not a source of calcium and magnesium. Calcium and magnesium saponify the oil to put it into a capsule. Remember that. That was a Jenny Craig secret years ago. It was magnesium with the meal saponified fat and pulled it out of the system. So this is how we do it in this scenario, so we can put oils into a capsule. Butyrate is your short chain fatty acid. It's your primary fuel for your colonocytes. It's an NF-kappa B inhibitor. So it's an anti-inflammatory. It inhibits biofilm formation. It actually breaks it down. It also, in studies, shows it kills off candida via a hydrogen peroxide pathway. I mean, we can talk about butyric CalMag all day long. I get a lot of great results with it, have over the years. When I first came out of college and was in the clinical setting in Wisconsin, I saw butyrate help in our clinic, who were workers in our clinic, but bleeding colitis absolutely dramatically shifted their health once they got on the butyric CalMag. In the gut health secondary program is BioFiber Complete. Many of you may not be familiar with this one. We've not actually talked about it a lot. Many people think of like Colon Plus as our fiber agent, and that's a bulking agent. This is not designed as a bulking agent. This is designed as a fiber to feed the microbiome and to give them the healthy fiber that they need to set up a good layer in the GI. So a wonderful newer product to our line, mixes well, tastes good in a shake. It is part of actually our weight management program called the Metabolic Biome Kits. It's in with the protein powder. It gives it kind of a little nutty flavor. It's all organic. It's a beautiful product. There's really good literature, and Dr. Alex Vasquez was the one that put this product together. He did the literature search, did all the thought on this. And there is great information about, what we're learning about this GI, this tube north to south. We're learning a lot lately. Is that this fiber helps also regulate the uptake of glucose. So when we have a healthy microbiome, we are all regulating the uptake of the sugars and the insulin effect. Vitamin A, D, E, and K for your epithelial lining. Gastrozyme, one of my go-tos. It's in the counter here, it's in the car there, it's in the briefcase. Not that I have a terrible GI, but it's always nice to have around, because I call gastrozyme is it takes the fire out of the belly. If you had kind of a rough meal, a sour meal, and you know me, I'm out on the road a lot, in a lot of restaurants. I'm very cautious, try to be as cautious as I can, but gastrozyme calms that fire in the belly if you've had a little bit of an upset stomach. It promotes the healing of the the stomach lining. And here's a side note. In our literature on gastrozyme, we have really good information on the use of it for healing the effect of nonsteroidal anti-inflammatories. So we know NSAIDs, they can be very erosive to the stomach. Not my first choice, obviously, but people do a lot of NSAIDs. And if you have clients, if you're a chiropractor or a naturopath listening in, and you have clients that are in acute pain, and they're on NSAIDs, please make sure they're on gastrozyme to help prevent the erosive effect from the nonsteroidal anti-inflammatories. And then in the gut health secondary, we have the probiotic BioDof 7 Plus. Great formula, as you see right here, provides a blend of 3 prebiotics and 7 probiotics. This has been around a long time, a gold standard formula, but I'm going to talk about a new formula we're bringing into the line and show you the literature and the studies on that. So GI Resolve, easy to mix, great tasting powder formula. We looked at everybody's, and that's the reality of it. We looked at everybody's, and competition is good. And we felt we brought the cleanest GI repair formula to the market. We really do. And I'll show you some of the reasons why. If you note down at the bottom here, and you'll see on the next slide, there's really nothing else to this. There's no fillers, no flavoring agents, things of that nature. So you have zinc as zinc carnosine. Oh boy, sorry. You have zinc as zinc carnosine, very healing towards the GI. Here's an interesting little side note. I was on a conference call with Biotics, some of the team at Biotics and some of the ingredient suppliers. And zinc carnosine is not created equal. There are really 2 main sources out there. One's from China and one's from Japan. And we looked at both of them. But we found that the Japanese source was much better than the Chinese source. And there was a price difference. But we chose the more expensive, cleaner, more effective product. So that's something to ask your supplement rep if you're choosing to look at another company. Where are they getting their zinc carnosine from if that's what they're promoting? Many of you know all about L-glutamine, 4 grams in there. We're going to talk about N-acetyl D-glucosamine at 1 gram. We're going to talk about why MSM is in here. We're going to show you about licorice root. Many of you are very familiar with that. Okra, huge fan of okra, very mucilaginous, and then the aloe vera. So GI Resolve has no flavors, no colors, no gums, no sweeteners or other additives. So that's what I'm saying made us quite a bit different in the industry is we didn't have any of these agents. Now, some people say, well, my patient won't take it because it doesn't taste great. Well, the taste is not that bad. And think of this. This is what I think of. When I have a patient who is severely hypersensitive in the GI, I want to throw at it the least possible irritants. A flavoring agent, a coloring agent, sweeteners, and other additives can cause a problem. So our motto was use the best, ditch the rest. I kind of like that one. And we've had great results with GI Resolve. As you know, and this whole story goes down to when you have increased intestinal permeability, you have potential for autoimmune diseases. And that goes back to Nutrition 101. When I came out of school, and I've been around a while, we as functional medicine-minded people get great results when we look at autoimmune cases from a GI leaky gut permeability dysbiosis standpoint. Is it a fungus? Is it a bacteria? Is it a parasite? Is it a food allergy? The list goes on. And you need to take the time, ideally with these tougher cases, to peel that onion, if that patient is so willing, to look for what is the root cause. Look at chronic fatigue with leaky gut, fibromyalgia, arthritis. And some of the best responses I've ever had with rheumatoid arthritis was a detox program. What are we taking away? The inflammatory foods. We're detoxifying the liver. We're cleaning up the gut. We are not having that cytokine storm reaction causing inflammation systemically. You look at allergies, you know this. I mean, you have the antigen-antibody reaction. When we are throwing food allergies into the system, you're having a problem, especially at a leaky gut level. That goes with asthma. That goes with acne. I mean, it's not as simple as it sounds always, but if you look at a teenager's diet, you can kind of tell that it's either pizzas and Pop-Tarts or it's vegetables and protein and obesity. And then here's the big one, mental illness. I mean, and I'll show you some of that later on in these slides, but it's the gut-brain connection. It's the vagal tone. It's now what we're seeing, the microbiota is very specific in certain areas of neurotransmitter production. So why did we put N-acetylglucosamine in there? First off, just so you know, ours is shellfish free. Pretty unique. As far as I'm aware, my competitors are not. Last time I looked, they were not. So that may be a great concern for many of you. But glycosaminoglycans help form the protective barrier that separates bacteria from the intestinal epithelium. So that N-acetylglucosamine is a very healing nutrient to create that barrier, heal that lining up. It helps improve symptoms in patients with inflammatory bowel disease by doing that, creating that protective barrier. Then you have MSM. And when we first came out with the formula, I was like, well, why do we have MSM in here? I was not thinking this route. But MSM inhibits NF-kappa B. You've heard me talk about NF-kappa B a lot. That's your inflammatory enzyme. And so if we are having a client or a patient with a severely inflamed GI, adding some MSM in there into that powder helps calm that inflammatory response. Remember, I talked about butyrate being an NF-kappa B inhibitor. A lot of healing nutrients are NF-kappa B inhibitors to reduce the inflammation. It reduces, as it points out, the colonic inflammatory markers dramatically. And interestingly enough, I wasn't thinking about this either. You need sulfur to increase levels of glutathione, and it's a great source of sulfur. Glutathione, your master antioxidant. So a nice component to have in this powder. Okra, a mucilaginous herb. I get great results with this product for Barrett's esophagitis, for that inflammatory process in the esophageal lining, because of things like okra, very mucilaginous. What I do with this powder, though, is I put it in water. It's not that bad. Mix it up. It will settle, so keep stirring, sip it. Sip it throughout the day to put a coated lining back into the esophageal lining and calm that inflammatory process down. Okra has antioxidant properties and exhibits strong gastroprotective effects. That's what I'm talking about, creating that lining that calm that inflammation down. And then many of you are familiar with deglycerinated licorice. It coats and soothes the intestinal lining like we've talked about before. It's also a strong antioxidant activity that results in cytoprotective mechanisms that supports the healing of the tissues damaged by inflammation. So these people that have been under chronic inflammation, chronic irritation, DGL comes in very nicely and says, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to help this. I have people that really thrive on this powder. I was up at an office a couple of days ago, and she does her hydrolyzed collagen protein from us, but she goes, my GI, not sure, I'm not her clinician to tell her what's wrong, but she thrives on the GI Resolve in her protein shake every day. Very calming, very healing. And so here's your zinc carnosine that we talked about earlier. The takeaway from this is, again, not all zinc carnosine is created equal, but if you look at here, zinc carnosine, a health food supplement that stabilizes small bowel integrity and stimulates gut repair. That's a nice little piece. It has a United States patent number for inflammatory bowel disease preventative and curative agent containing zinc carnosine salt. That's pretty powerful. So it's some of the products out there have different forms of zinc. This is the Pepzin GI. It's a registered product. And you see the positive benefits of why we have that particular form of zinc in our formula. Here we are. We've talked about immuno-GG-SBI, and I don't mean to beat the drum again and again, but sometimes we need to be refreshed and hear it a few times. So we're like, oh, okay, now I've got it. Oh, I've got that client. And so here you have it. It's serum bovine immunoglobulins. It is not colostrum source. And I'll show you the difference. Here's the difference. Here's serum bovine column. Here's two colostrum columns, okay? So protein content, 90% versus 72, 74. Look at the immuno-GG content, the immunoglobulin content at 52 versus 31 and 35%. Lactose, below levels detected, where you have 8% and 8.3%. You have an allergenic component in normal colostrum source immunoglobulins. Not generally something I want to throw at a hypersensitive GI. And then you have endotoxins, 0.3 versus 2.4 and 1.8. More endotoxins in the colostrum-based products. Yes, these are going to be a little bit more cost effective, but then I look at the bang for the buck from a therapeutic response. I'm going to go with the SBI. I can tell you, and I have already story after story from my clinicians that I love to hear from every day about the results we're getting with ImmunoGG SBI. I told you one about Duke down the hall and his parvo. I got a call from one of my doctors at Christmas time who I had talked to him about histamine cases. I'm going to show, we've talked about the histamine response. I'll show it to you again. But this patient was on inhalers, chronic asthma, got on the ImmunoGG SBI, got off her inhalers, was going back for another bottle. A client up in Prescott was doing allergy shots, no longer needs to do allergy shots based on the ImmunoGG SBI. So we are healing up that gut lining and decreasing mast cell activation. So this is an extensively studied product in more than 265 patients since 2012, contains highest concentration of naturally sourced immunoglobulins in the world. Backed over by 45 human clinical trials, has 6 placebo-controlled clinical studies on HIV enteropathy, IBS-D, digestibility, and pediatric IBS. That's why there's the powder, really easy. I mean, I can open up the capsules too. There's really no major flavor to it, but the powder is a nice one to have as well. But here's the story again. Here we go. I've shown this slide before, but this is an important slide. Here's your altered gut microbiota causing leaky gut issues. Antigen penetrates right here. You have an inflammatory immune activation reaction, increased mast cells, releases a pro-inflammatory cytokine, TNF-alpha, etc. So if we're healing up this gut, we are decreasing mast cell activation. That's my antihistamine component. We're decreasing mast cell activation, and we are decreasing pro-inflammatory cytokines. What have we heard about for the past couple of years? From a viral standpoint, inflammatory cytokine pathways, be it inflammation here or wherever systemically in the body, we are having pro-inflammatory cytokines. If we can reduce that by healing up the gut, obviously fixing people's diets. The lines around Starbucks and Chick-fil-A are shocking to me. Not that I'm a purist, but it's shocking to me that these people eat this on a regular basis, causing that inflammatory response. I've showed you that before with a quote unquote golden arches breakfast, a 150% increase in C-reactive protein in a blood test is major. From an inflammatory one meal for 2 hours after that meal. So here we are, if we're healing up the gut, we're decreasing mast cell activation, decreasing that histamine response. Then you don't have to go to the DAO pathway and try to metabolize histamine. You are not even creating a histamine response. Now, you do need some histamine in the body, don't get me wrong, but from this standpoint, we want to reduce it. And we want to reduce the pro-inflammatory cytokines. Here's the clinical trial results. These are big numbers. 39% reduction in loose stools, 38% reduction in abdominal discomfort. Look at that, urgency, bloating, flatulence, all decreased by around 30-some%. So that's the story on my primary 2 products for gut health. That's your foundational 2 products. Now, people say, well, what if they have SIBO? Well, we talked about SIBO last time, and do the SIBO protocol first, clean them up from the bacteria, and then go into the gut healing program that I just mentioned. So now let's talk about our new product, BioDoth 3 GI. So we have a new probiotic being released, as I talked about, in a few days. If you're listening in, as I said earlier in the talk, it's not on the website yet. It hasn't been released. So please, I've been told to, not harass my customer service. Harass me. I'm happy to help you. And I'm happy to take a pre-order if you're interested in this product. Once you see the results or the studies here, I know I'm interested in the product for personal use and happy to talk about it and educate on it, because what we saw at our sales meeting on this product was very exciting. So people who have a hypersensitive GI, either IBS or SIBO or lactose intolerance or the anxiety-driven GI effect. People are very anxious, very loose GI. This probiotic has been looked at for all of these areas. So approximately 11% of the population has IBS. And the interesting thing that we talked about, and many of you maybe were very aware of, is usually these IBS patients are highly sensitive to high volume probiotics. What I mean is the 50, 150, 200 billion type products. And they get a little bit like, oh gosh, I can't take it. In fact, I just talked to somebody today who said, yeah, I've got IBS patients that they won't even touch a probiotic because they don't want the high volume because they get a bad reaction to it. So these are challenging patients with a high non-response rate. Now, I will tell you, if you titrate in those first two ingredients, the GI Resolve, the two products, the GI Resolve and the Immuno-GG-SBI, very calming, very easy on the GI, but titrate it in. Don't go overly aggressively. So here's what it looks like. 30 capsule bottle, strain-specific probiotics in a formula, clinically studied in randomized clinical controlled trials. So often supplement companies, not naming names, we might be guilty of that, you know, in one of our products in the BioDoff 7, but they might take a study from a strain here and a study from a strain here and combine the product and say, oh my gosh, it fixes all of these, which in reality can be a positive. But what this did is we took all three strains and put them into studies to show the overall effect of all three, not just one strain, combine them. So BioDoff 3 GI is for your hypersensitive patient. Strain-specific, blends selected for targeted outcome. So this is a targeted product. Exact formula clinically validated in lower doses, and I'll show you that, and shelf stable at room temperature, so it's not a refrigerated product. Here you are, 3 billion once a day, 1 capsule a day, as effective as doses 5 times higher. So that's a really interesting story to me when people are out there saying, oh, you got to have 50, you got to have 100, you got to have 200 billion or your product isn't worth anything. Well, in my many years of being in this industry, nutritional science is a science and it's ever evolving. And in this case, 3 billion was effective as 5 times higher. They didn't need those many other billions and more capsules. So it's a 1 capsule a day product, very product specific. Here's your 3 probiotics that are in it. As it says, clinically tested formula versus the mixology of strains. So this is all 3 were put together and done in studies. So here's your IBS study on quality of life, abdominal pain, and stool consistency. Quality of life, here's the product right here, dramatically better. Abdominal pain, dramatically better. Stool consistency, dramatically better. Now, the other study shows it with an antispasmodic. Personally, not my choice. Many of you don't have prescriptive authority, and the numbers aren't that. Some of them are a little bit big, you know, a little bit different, but way better than a placebo. So I'm pretty excited about this product from those 3 factors in an IBS study. Here's a stress-induced diarrhea study. Remember, we talked about that anxious patient. Here we go. In 4 weeks' time, a major reduction in stress-induced diarrhea. I don't know about you, but with what's going on out there, seeing a lot more stress-induced issues in the GI. Be it, as I said, the Starbucks, Chick-fil-A line, whatever it may be, I don't have that answer. But again, today, I had the pleasure of talking to a doctor and we were discussing what she's seeing a lot more of. And she goes, I'm seeing a lot more GI stuff. People complaining about GI stuff. So we know stress has a major impact on cortisol levels in the GI, and it's very destructive. I think there's a lot of layers to this onion to focus on, but now just what we're presenting today, if I was a clinician, I would be arming myself with these for a lot of my patients. So it's highlights of this Bio3 GI. Clinically validated multi-species formula provides digestive comfort because of the low amount is what we're seeing. Promotes gastrointestinal epithelial repair. Upregulates short-chain fatty acid production. You heard me talk about butyrate before, one of your short-chain fatty acids. What makes short-chain fatty acids? Probiotics and fiber. Years ago, we took those out with antibiotics and McDonald's. You know, and McDonald's, please don't come after me. I'm just saying the non-fibrous foods that we consume and the amount of antibiotics we have, not just taken for illness, but in our food supply, has reduced the butyrate levels. When I was in the clinical setting, we used to run butyrate levels on every male over 40. And because in the literature, low butyrate levels are highly indicative of colon cancer risk. So when we would see a low butyrate level, we would think we need to get them on good fiber, good probiotics, but we'd already supplement them with the butyric calmaic to upregulate that for a healthy GI, feeding the colonocytes. This probiotic also balances the microbiota, helps digest lactose, and supports a positive mood. Remember, we talked about that anxiety component, gut-brain connection, brain-gut connection, vagal tone, all of that. We're seeing strain-specific probiotics now affecting certain areas of mood disorders. This product has also been utilized or is being utilized in a SIBO study and is also being utilized in a migraine study. And if you think about it, not to simplify migraines at all for those of you that suffer with them out there, but migraines and the gut are often hand in hand. Now, there's the whole vagal tone component. You have to look at sympathetic, parasympathetic. But if we have a leaky gut, we're not helping the system handle a potential migraine pathway. So here's your wholesale pricing at $17.45, your retail at $34.90. Again, one capsule a day at $3 billion. So if you buy 6 or more, you get 10% off with code BIODOPH22, so BIODOPH 22. It's not a one-time offer, and it expires August 31st. So if you want to try this, you got to buy 6 or more at a time to get the 10% off through August 31st. When you place an order for 6 or more, and you want a point of sale stand, please request that when you place your order, or if you order through me and you want it, I will mention it. We have a lot of these. And so the point of these point of sale pieces is to put it on your front counter ideally. So when your client is checking out with their credit card or writing their check, and they can look at your point of sale pieces, we have it on all the products that we've discussed that are new. Last time we talked about Tolerate, we have one on hemp as well. Look at this, your solution to gut hypersensitivity. As your client is checking out, they read your sign and says, maybe it's not for them, but maybe it's for their spouse, or maybe it's for their kids or their mother, something like that, where it's a ethical form of sales on a quality product. So these are, and these patient brochures are very informative and nicely done. And these are free to you. Buy 6 or more, request the stand, we'll ship it out to you. And again, if you're talking to me, I'm going to recommend these because I've got a lot of them. And they are actually a usable tool up front to help promote what you're doing and what your business looks like. Because sometimes the supplements are behind a door. People don't see it. This is nice to face front for your patient right at the counter. Okay, so we've talked about this earlier on. Here's the raffle. Oh boy. Here's the raffle question. How many billion is the BioDoff 3 GI capsule? Answer in your chat box. All right, so that's going into the chat box. Next class, how to keep calm in the storm, anxiety and depression protocols that work. That's Thursday, July 21st. We will talk about Actimeg Plus. I have a protocol for the anxiety and depression. So we will cover those. I will be also sending you links to all my other talks coming up. I've not booked them, but I will have one in August, September, October, November, and December. And I hope you're enjoying these. Again, I appreciate you taking the time to listen in. If you have any questions, you know where to reach me. It's dbenning@bioticsresearch.com, dboenning@bioticsresearch.com, or call or text me on my cell phone at 602-690-9636. Again, I appreciate you all listening in. If you have any questions, you know where to find me.